Hey guys, I thought it might be helpful if I recorded just a small lesson about some of the things that we're learning this week. Just try to kind of organize it for you and hopefully make more sense. So here's the outline of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to go over fonts, specifically what serif versus sans serif means is. We're going to do script. We're going to talk about text paragraph alignment, so that's justification, the different types that exist, and then looking at spacing, tracking, kerning, and leading. All of these are things that are included in the glossaries that I put on Canvas, so you can definitely figure it out there, but I thought I'd go over kind of how each of those are important and how give some examples and see how they're used in real life. So this little board for my daughter. She has these cute little markers, expo markers with pom-poms on the top to erase. So I'm going to start with erasing what I have there, and we're going to go into fonts. So the first thing I had on there were serif. So what is a serif font? So there are two types of fonts. Fonts are either serif or they're sans serif. So fonts, I'm going to look at the capital F. So a font that is a serif font, right? So when I write it normally, my handwriting is just kind of plain. A serif font, that's really bad. Let's try this. Eraser, here we go. All right, so a serif font, we'll use that little ledge, see if we can get this going. A serif font is going to have little lines on the end of the characters. Now different fonts have different style lines, so that's part of what that entire glossary goes over. Things are wider or skinnier or longer or shorter. There's many different ways, but essentially a serif is a little line on the end of the character. Sans serif. So if a font is sans serif, sans means without. So that means it is a font that does not have the little lines on the ends of a character. So again, a font that is sans serif is going to look a little bit more like this. It's typically Arial is one that we think of, is a very common sans serif font, and Times New Roman, which is a kind of standard serif font. So fonts generally are either serif or sans serif, and then the only exception to that rule are fonts that are called scripts. So you know what a script is. It's like cursive writing, where the characters are all connected. They're not exactly serifs, they're not exactly sans serifs. Okay, next, alignment. So if I have a chunk of text, okay, lots and lots of text, I can have it justified. So we're looking at, it's called justification. So how is it aligned? You can have it where all the lines touch at the same spot. You could have it right aligned, which means it's going to be aligned on the right side. Well, this is technically left aligned, I think. Yeah, left aligned. So we're going to have it, the ends don't all match up. And then if you have right aligned, they're going to kind of hang out in the other direction. Let me erase this one, at different lengths. So our typical justification is to have it left aligned. That is the most common, right? You start typing in Google Doc, and as soon as it hits this margin, so this is what the margins of the page are, kind of the edges, it's going to bump some set of characters down to the next line. So these will not all line up. But I can change those features, right? In all programs, just about, we can change that. But specifically with our graphic design, we're going to look at being purposeful about how things are aligned. Does it touch the margins? Does it touch the margins on one side, or does it touch the margins on the other side? So we've got justification, so how things are aligned. And then spacing. So you've got a couple different types of spacing. So you have spacing between lines of text. This is really common. You see double spaced, single spaced, or sometimes that 1.5 option if we're in Google Docs. Again, we are looking at doing things in Adobe programs, and so they're going to have more advanced features, more advanced functions, and they're going to want you to really think a little bit harder about the design specifically of the text, of the paragraph, of whatever it is you're creating. So the types of spacing that we're going to look at, tracking. Tracking is going to be the space between all the characters in a line of text. So if I have learning fonts is fun. Okay, I wrote that with one specific set of tracking. I could track it differently. And if you see the difference here is that the spacing between all these characters is wider, right? There's more space between the L and the E here than there is here. And that is a choice. You could change that, you can choose how you want that to be. There are certain characters that have unique spacing issues. So with like a P or an F, let's do a capital P. If I have a capital P and I want to have an A, well, in traditional tracking, right, it might put that A here. So I might have the word Papa. So that word Papa, this looks awkward, right, because the spacing here is too wide. It might be the same spacing. Well, I didn't draw it with the same spacing, but let's say it has the same spacing as all the other characters. But it just looks funny because the P hangs out so much farther, so you're visually seeing it from this point, not from this point. So that's called, when we change that, that's actually called kerning. Okay, so tracking is the spacing between all the characters in a line of text. Kerning is going to be just between the spaces of certain characters. So let me write kerning, K-E-R-N-I-N-G. Kerning is the space between certain, just one and another character. So you actually can set this. So what I would do, right, so if this looks like, let me dash that instead. So if the traditional spacing, let's just say, is this, right, that A starts over here, I'm going to try to get that spacing kind of similar for the next character. And then, okay. I want to adjust the kerning just between these two characters. So what I would do is I would put my cursor between there. In Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, all the programs have this. And I'm going to reduce that spacing so that it brings that A almost underneath the P. I can bring it really close. Just depends on the look that you want to go for. So that's kerning. So we did tracking and kerning are the spaces along the horizontal. And then you have the vertical spacing, which is what you're most familiar with as being called double spaced or single spaced. But in our programs, we can get even more detailed. So that's called leading. And I won't go into the history right now of where that came from, but normally if we were in class, we would understand that. But what that is a spacing between lines of text. So again, if I had some lines of text, I could have a very close distance, or I could space them out a little bit farther. So leading is the space between lines of text. So that's the vertical distance between lines of text. So let's look at some examples of how all of this is used in design. So the first thing I did was just go around the house and grab some things. This has been sitting, I guess, at my house for a little while now because marketing, right, they've mailed these ads to me trying to get me to buy. So this has some, you know, it's a coupon kind of thing. But you can see on the front cover, they've thought about some different things. So this is all centered in this space, right? So they took this dimension and they said, we want to center this text. This sample, I don't actually think it has, any other justification. Everything is centered. All the text that I see is centered. I don't know how easily you can see that one. But there are ones that have a mix of centered, right aligned, left aligned. So I'm looking at this mix here And I see kind of everything right on the front here because of the graphic, the way it's designed. This is all centered. But when I come here and I look at this, I don't know how well you can see this. I don't know if my camera will adjust, but this is all right aligned. So you can see these lines kind of hang out at different levels. And we go around again, right aligned, but this is centered. Again, you have a circle. Anytime you have a circle, it definitely helps to center it. Tends to look really good. I see some right aligned content here. And then these, they have these little graphics. So then again, they want their content centered inside that graphic. So we added some insurance a couple weeks ago to a vehicle, and so now all of the insurance companies that we may have reached out to have sent us some marketing, some more information trying to get us to purchase. So again, you can see the most common, kind of a real common, is to right align, but here they have things that are right aligned, and then again things that are centered or aligned in other ways. Although this is centered, this is right aligned here. Down at the bottom in this box, they've created this box so you can have multiple types of justification on one page. That's the beauty of the Adobe programs. We can include graphics, so these are vector graphics, so that's what Illustrator can start to make. These things that look a little bit more like symbols, not like real pictures. So when we left off, we were using Photoshop mostly, and we were looking at how everything looked like or is a real life picture. It has pixels, right? It has a lot of shadow, a lot of contouring. These are pretty much kind of more like flat graphics. We can create some dimension, which this has, but it's pretty much a flat graphic. And then on the back, again, similar. They have this is actually justified. Okay, so if you see on this page, this text goes, it all is kind of like boxy is the word I use for that. So it has this boxy kind of look to it. You got that graphic kind of in the middle of it. We are going to look at putting some graphics together. That's why I'm showing you all of this. Of course, we can't use Illustrator because you guys don't have that on your computers, so I'm going to have another resource for us to use. But understanding these is going to be really important. And then there's sometimes putting content around images. So this is an actual image, and you can see this text has been placed so that it fits around, is that Flo? Is that her name? I forget, from Progressive, all those commercials. But this fits around her body so that it doesn't go into the image or any of that. But again, then justified text. This is justified on the back here. But this is not. This is kind of hanging out on the edge there. We can also have text. This is really tiny. This little postcard actually has text where it is formed in a shape. We're going to get that advanced at some point. We're not there yet. And really, that's everything for today. So what we went over, we did fonts, serif versus sans serif, script being kind of not either or of those, alignment, how texts are aligned in a paragraph, and then we did spacing, so the spacing between characters and the spacing between lines of text. Hopefully they made sense. We're going to use all this information in our project that we're going to be working on. Again, we're going to have a resource that's going to be very similar to how Illustrator works if we ever end up back at school. I think you guys are going to really love what Illustrator is powerful enough to do, but we're not there yet. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye.